Hey, folks, colleagues of mine here at WT White. I hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome to the first ever teacher advisory. That's right, folks. It's only for you. It's just for the staff. It's not for the students. If the students only knew what we were going to talk about here, they would riot in the streets. So let's go ahead and get into it. What is teacher advisory? This is going to be a bi-weekly video. Once every 2 weeks, not twice a week. You can choose to watch it on your own time, or your AP might want you guys to watch it during PLC. And teacher advisory is going to cover at least one thing every video in these three areas, which will first be student advisory updates or best practices. It'll be a moment where I can talk directly to you as teachers to share some of the things that are going on in advisory, to maybe address some of the concerns that you may have. The second thing will be just something about teaching, about professional life. It'll be some sort of practice that I thought was interesting, or something that you all bring to me or send me that I can then share with the rest of the staff. Just some sort of encouragement or idea for your teaching practices. And the third area that we'll cover is work-life balance, or just life in general as a teacher. So I'm going to try to hit all three of these in each video that I do.
Hey, okay, sorry to interrupt.
I'm editing this video right now, and the first section is taking a little bit longer. The advisory section, it's going to be a little bit longer, I think, just for this video because we didn't get to have an advisory PD at the beginning of the year. But in the future, I want to keep videos between 5 and 10 minutes just to respect your time. I want it to be useful, not a burden to you. And if you're watching any of these videos on YouTube by yourself, there will be chapters to where you can skip ahead through the different topics of advisory, teaching, and work and life balance. So sorry this video is going to be a little bit longer. It will be shorter in the future. Thank you anyway for watching.
Back to it.
Why I'm doing teacher advisory? Why not? Really, it should be why wasn't I doing teacher advisory the entire time? Because the real reason here is to support and directly invest in the workplace culture, the professional efficacy, and the general wellness of teachers here at WT White. It's very similar to my goals for student advisory, but I wanted to more directly support teachers in the same way that I'm trying to do with students, because teaching is a stressful job.
I don't know if I'm the first person to tell you this.
And even though we all deserve to get paid more, even though we all deserve to get more respect from society, I can't get no respect around here as a teacher. In lieu of any of that, I hope that this becomes some sort of encouragement or boost for you as I release them. That's really the only purpose. This goes back to, a very common metaphor of putting your own mask on before you can help someone else put their mask. I want to make sure that we're doing everything to keep you as teachers oxygenated so that you in turn are empowered and feel like you have enough bandwidth to do the same for our students. It's the whole reason why I say be good to yourself and others at the end of every video. It's because you really have to be good to yourself before you can even start to be good to others authentically. All right, all that said, let's go ahead and get started with our first topic, which is about student advisory. To start off the year, I wanted us to kind of refocus on the purpose of advisory, and I'm going to use your words to do it. These are going to be some of the responses from the anonymous form that I sent out last semester. These were the answers to the first question: if you had to explain to another teacher what advisory is and why we do it, these are some of the things that you said. To get out common messages regarding school culture, behavior, and expectations. Build relationships with third and eighth period students. To provide students with an opportunity to be more connected with the school and each other, and have a safe space to share with and listen to each other. Help students learn skills that help them become functioning and contributing citizens in society. Helps cut down questions in meetings about what's going on in school. And the last one that I really liked was helps us feel less isolated or like we're the only ones enforcing something. These are exactly right, and I hope that something along these lines is how you explain advisory to others that don't know about it and how you view advisory yourself. I also want to focus for a moment on this reflection right here, which is that it helps us feel less isolated or like we're the only ones enforcing something. And that leads me to my next point about student advisory, which is regarding participation and ownership. Because part of the reason that we do advisory is to make sure that everyone in the building feels connected by the common messaging, by the activities that we're doing, and by the things that we're doing for our kids across the building. And when I asked in that anonymous form, what would you do to improve advisory? There were several teachers that said something to this effect, which is that they always do advisory, but they get a lot of pushback from students who ask, why do we have to do this? my other teacher doesn't. Between answers like this and actually speaking to students and asking them about advisory and having them say, oh, my teacher doesn't do that, this teacher doesn't do that, it gets out, right? It kind of permeates the entire building when somebody isn't participating or not offering this to the students. And so if the normal reasons to do advisory don't work, maybe this will, in that it affects your colleagues and the culture overall in the building when we don't do it or when we don't implement it consistently. Another thing that I got pretty frequently in terms of participation was something along these lines, which is I don't always feel comfortable leading the discussions in advisory. And I can definitely understand on some level that some of these topics may not be your forte or may not be exactly easy for you to talk about, but I would hope that that discomfort that you feel is an indication to stretch and grow and be able to lead these discussions. I also think that the discussions and the strategies that you could implement during advisory can bleed over into how you run your classroom. You can think of the discussion questions in advisory as practice, really, kind of low stakes, non-graded practice, not only for your students to discuss and think, but also for you to lead a discussion over something that you may not be altogether familiar with or comfortable with. And of course, I'm always willing to talk to you one-on-one on how these discussions can go a little bit smoother or how we can improve engagement. And we will definitely include some lessons on leading discussions in our teacher advisory. And I wanted to share one more answer to how advisory can improve because I think it's indicative of an attitude that can very much permeate the building if we let it. But I think the honesty of this answer sheds a little light on how we move forward if advisory and the discussions are uncomfortable either for the teacher, the students, or both. I actually did do advisory every day, but full transparency, at this point I just show the video but don't lead the discussions or have them do writing or assignments. Frankly, the students think advisory is a waste of time or free time, and they won't do the associated work or discussion since they know I'm not grading it. As an aside, I want to note that even though things are not graded, doesn't necessarily mean that they are not worthwhile. Advisory has never been graded. It never will be graded. The benefit of advisory goes beyond grading. And I would honestly hope that in your individual classrooms, you are doing things that are worthwhile aside from just offering a grade for it. But I digress. I really wanted to draw your attention to something that I noticed about this answer. This person says that at this point, I usually just show them the video, but don't lead the discussion. And frankly, the students think advisory is a waste of time or free time. Do you see the connection there? Is it making sense why I highlighted these two phrases? Do you think that this and this may be connected in some way? This person says that the students think that advisory is a waste of time or free time right after them saying that the teacher themselves don't really participate in the activity. They just show my ugly mug and move on. So of course the students think that advisory is free time or a waste of time because on some level this teacher thinks that it is a waste of time or free time. The impetus of participation comes from you, the advisor, not the students. Let me show you a positive example of how this participation and ownership comes from you and permeates through your classroom and therefore the building. This is an email that I got and I have permission to share from Miss Martin regarding the advisory that we did on the first day back where it was the name game, getting to know each other again, sitting in a circle and answering the very simple question, what was a high from the break and what was a low from the break? Something good that happened over the break and something bad. And this is what she said. Was not looking forward to this advisory today as I had an extreme Christmas break. I was thinking I wouldn't share, but I thought I needed to be professionally vulnerable with the kids. I shared these exact words with them. I had an extreme break. My high is that I got an amazing new car. My low is that I had a friend who unexpectedly passed away. It was great advisory, maybe mostly for me, but I think for all. Everyone willingly participated and seemed maybe even slightly eager to do so. Nobody needed a Kleenex, but I think we shared a little more than before and strengthened our community. This, dude.
This right here is what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Miss Martin, for sharing. And I really hope you see the difference in approach from this story right here and the last thing that we read. Miss Martin put herself in a position where, with boundaries, she was vulnerable with her students. And in turn, that encouraged them to be vulnerable themselves. And while it wasn't for a grade, there was palpable strengthening of the community in advisory. That's what I'm talking about, man. I can make 1,000 videos I can make a million videos and not have this kind of effect directly on kids because she is their teacher and they are her students. There's nothing that I can do from this desk with this camera that comes even close to this level of connectivity with the students, which is exactly what advisory seeks to do. Just know that your position on advisory and your attitude towards the lessons or towards your own comfortability will bleed out into the rest of the students. And if you are willing to be a little bit vulnerable, if you're willing to do the advisory lessons, even the ones that you may not be looking forward to or don't feel are relevant, then you may surprise yourself and your kids may surprise you as to how your community is strengthened in that class. Okay, soapbox over. Please do advisory, yada, yada. Let's talk a little bit about teaching. It's very simple, it's very quick, but I wanted to show this that our wonderful colleague, Miss Kime, found and kind of made her own. I thought that this was a really clear and concise way for students to understand what a grade means. And you may have to adjust the actual wording to fit your subject level a bit more. Miss Kime and other English teachers work on a pretty subjective scale, especially when it comes to student writing. And so something that offers clarity on what each grade means can go a really long way for your students, and it can go a really long way for you as you grade if it's feeling subjective or you need some way to take the guesswork out of what grade to give a student on an assignment. Each section talks about the level of effort. It talks about on the top level how they went over and above, or they can explain it. And as you go down, I mostly understand, good effort, I'm showing what I know. I understand some things, but some things may not be complete or it may not be my best effort. And then down here you get, I need to go to tutoring or I don't understand. And then for zeros, I plagiarized or I cheated, that kind of thing. I know that whenever I was grading, I often got bogged down because I didn't know what to give the student. I would grade at different times, and so I wasn't always calibrated. For daily assignments, it was pretty subjective, and maybe you feel that way too on your grading. And so this can help explain some of that and make it a little bit clearer. Thank you, Ms. Kime, for sharing this, and use it or lose it. And you can see this up close in the picture that I sent through the email accompanying this video. If you have anything like this that you think could help out your colleagues or help out a lot of folks in the building, please don't hesitate to send it to me and I'll include it in future teacher advisories. Okay, and the final topic that we will talk about in each of these videos is work-life balance. For this video, I looked at this article from Edutopia. I don't know if you've ever read anything from Edutopia, but they have a ton of good stuff, very good articles from teacher writers. This is all about building resilience and preventing burnout. I don't know about you guys, but by the end of December, I was burnt. I was so tired. I was exhausted. I was ready for the break. And while I feel rejuvenated after the break, I think that it's important to also realize that we can't just rely on breaks to be the only time that we recharge, that we have to do things while the school year is going on to help ourselves out a little bit. You should definitely look at the article, also included in the email and in the description below this video. I hope you find some of the things in the article helpful. I mean, look at this lady. She seems pretty content. Granted, she's not an actual teacher, probably just a stock photo model, but maybe she took some of the advice from this article. Okay, number one sounds obvious and much easier said than done, but it's to care for your body. Getting 8 hours of sleep every night is huge for your emotional health and your wellness throughout the day. Eating nutritious food. I'll admit this is probably two of the tougher things for me to remember to do, but when I do, I feel so much better. Number two is carve out downtime and honor it religiously. This says to make sure you take at least one weekend day off and stop working by 8 p.m. on the weekdays. You should definitely have a hard cutoff every day where you stop thinking about work. I would try as many days as you can to push this back to like 7 or 6. You want a real self-care pro tip? Leave your bag at school a day or two out of the week. Completely remove the option to do work at home and just see how your body reacts. Again, all this is easier said than done, but it really does take a carving out of downtime for yourself, being very intentional about when you're done with work. Number three, build in micro moments of renewal during the day. Every hour, at least a couple times a day, sitting still. I do think that throughout the day, there should be moments of silence. Maybe your micro moment of renewal is screaming in your car on your lunch break. Whatever it takes, just think about where your moments of rest can be throughout a given day. Number six is anchor in your why. Resilient people are driven by purpose. Why are we here? What are we doing? It's not for the lucrative paychecks.
Unless you're a superintendent.
So what are the reasons that we get up and we come to work every day? Why do we work here and not in something else? By nature, this profession has to include some level of altruism because we all care about kids. We all want to see them succeed. Nailing down your why or writing out a purpose statement can be huge in motivating you to stay resilient throughout the year, and it can be a real anchor for you when things get tough. Number 7 is be patient. And I like that it starts off with being patient with yourself first. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier about taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others. Having patience with yourself and patience with the multitude of different personalities, both adult and teenager, that you run into on this profession. It's just a good practice. And like the author says, it's not complacency, it's just understanding what we control and what we don't. One thing that has taught me great patience is driving in Dallas, Texas. A lot of that patience comes from realizing that traffic is always going to be there, that I will eventually arrive at my destination, and that it's not really worth the extra stress to be impatient. And that is the first teacher advisory for you. If you have any questions or suggestions for future teacher advisories, you can email me always, or you can go to the weekly feedback form on the bit.ly here, and there's a new question added that says, hey, what do you want to see in teacher advisory? I want this to be as meaningful for you as possible, and so let me know what sorts of things you want to see. Be good to yourself and others, and I'll see you real soon.